One. What's up, party people? It's your host, Sunny Ray on Building on Bitcoin. Today I'm joined by James Altucher. James, how you doing today?
Good, great. How are you?
I'm well. I'm well. Excited.
Sonny, I just want to say I always learn something new whenever I talk to you, so I'm looking forward to this podcast to see what I learned today.
Okay, okay. We might have to turn the tables on you a bit, though. I also learned a lot from you from our calls, and I got to admit, I know we're going to talk about Bitcoin. We're probably going to touch on AI a little bit. I've been following your Twitter uh, quite closely. You've got some exciting takes on that. But I got to start with one thing here, chess.
Yes, I
I
just
got
got
to
back from a chess tournament this morning, actually.
talk to me. Talk to me. So maybe okay, so just to give people a bit of a preview. So I mean, James is you're an investor, you're an author, an entrepreneur. You've got a beautiful story, and I'm really excited about this. We're gonna get into your Bitcoin story. Obviously, Bitcoin being kind of the focus of the podcast. But I like to go where people's interests are as well. And not gonna lie, I've been a bit of a chess bug here since I was a kid as well. So
Oh
uh,
yeah?
yeah. I've played in a couple of competitions and whatnot. But and then more recently in my adult life, picking it up a bit. So, but just curious, before we get into all the Bitcoin, crypto, AI stuff, what's your chess story?
Well, when I was younger, I came to the game fairly late for a chess player. I started playing in tournaments when I was about 17, but I quickly rose to above 2200, which is like the level for master. And my peak was around 2250. And then I stopped playing for 27 years. I completely stopped cold. And because, I had, you know, marriage and kids and a business I was starting and so on. And then, it's hard to come back. But more recently, I decided, you know what? I'm going to come back, play stronger than ever, and write a book about the experience. And I came back and I started playing in tournaments again, and the whole chess world has changed. Like, everybody is stronger because they have computers that they train with and practice with and Zoom coaches with every grandmaster on the planet. And uh, you know, it's very, very difficult. The game has just changed. And so I'm probably stronger than I ever was, but it's hard to retain that 2200 level, that master level. But fortunately, when you get the master title in the US, you keep it forever. So I still have that. But I love the game. I just came back from a tournament, the World Open in Philadelphia. I've been playing in that when I was a kid a lot, and that now 27 years later, I played in it again. And I love chess. I probably played just online, 20 games today.
Oh, I love to hear that. Any parallels? I mean, sometimes with Bitcoin, I kind of feel like we're playing 4D chess. But any parallels between the Bitcoin world and chess in your mind?
Yeah. Yeah, people think of chess. Chess has this great cultural significance in the world. Like, it's usually associated with thinking many moves ahead, a certain kind of cleverness and so on. I don't know if that's really true in the chess world, those analogies. But one thing that is true that a lot of people don't talk about is when you're in a game, you usually have a set of problems you need to solve. Like if your opponent is attacking you, oh, if I survive this attack, I'm probably going to win. Or if your pieces are a little less developed than your opponent's, if I solve this problem, I develop my pieces, I'm probably going to have a good game or at least equal game. And crypto reminds me a lot like that. Like, crypto in general is trying to solve a massive problem. Like, you think about it, it's an audacious problem. Hey, let's solve money. We're going to make money better. And like, money's been good for thousands of years, but it turns out it wasn't so good. And this anonymous guy, Satoshi Nakamoto, said, "You know what? I want to make money better." And so he made this thing called Bitcoin that solves what we now realize are incredible, like multi-trillion dollar problems in the financial system. And the idea is, if we solve this set of problems, like, oh, there's a central bank that could devalue your money without your permission. Oh, when I send money in a wire transaction, it mysteriously disappears for a few days, and I don't know where it is. And maybe there's human error, and maybe I have to do the know your customer, and there's privacy. There's all these little problems. Well, Satoshi Nakamoto comes along and says, if I solve these problems, I'm going to win. I'm going to win money. And he did it. And we're starting, the world, the entire planet is starting to see the results of that. So that is the real 4D chess. Like he solves a set of problems with, you know, a million man hours of code that he convinced other people to contribute. I mean, just think of that. He got people to write a million man hours of code. I don't even know if he wrote it. I mean, he did write some code, but he didn't. He wrote like 100 hours worth. Somebody else, another group of people, of volunteers, did another million hours worth. That's chess in itself. How do I get these problems solved? Well, he did it. He solved these problems, and it looks like he succeeded. Stablecoin transactions alone last year were $27 trillion. That's more than Visa and MasterCard combined. So that's a problem that was solved, like international, cross-border transactions. It's a big stablecoin use case. And on and on. I could go on forever. And that to me is chess in a real deep level.
I love it. I love it. So take us back. What was your world like before you discovered Bitcoin? So maybe share a little bit about your background, James.
Yeah, I mean, I had a weird period where I wasn't really doing anything. Like I had gone broke. I'd built several businesses, sold them, gone broke, built another, sold it, gone broke. I really didn't understand money actually. Like there's three skills to money. There's making it, keeping it, growing it. And I was consistently good at making it, starting from scratch. And then for the life of me, I could not keep it. I would make, poor investing decisions or poor life decisions and or whatever. And then I would get anxious and scared. My psychological relationship with money was not so well. And I was taking kind of a breather, and instead of starting businesses, I had invested in a couple of businesses, and then I got back to my first love in life, which was not chess but writing. And instead of writing about finance, which is something that I was usually writing about for the prior 10 years of that, I decided to write about my life. And like instead of saying, "Oh, the Apple stock is good" or whatever, I was writing about this is what happened to me when I went broke and how I came back from it, and all the things that happened to me during the time. And I was I along the way I was writing books about this, and some of them were very successful. But I started doing this Twitter Q&A every Thursday from 4:30 to 5:30. I did this every Thursday for 6 or 7 years, and this is in 2013. One of my I would do a Q&A, and one on Twitter, and one person asked me, "What do you think of this new thing, Bitcoin?" This is 2013. And I said, this is March 2013. I said, it's probably a scam. I think it's a scam. It seems like a Ponzi scheme to me. And Naval Ravikant read this and he said, James, we got to sit down and talk. You don't really understand Bitcoin. And so he visited me, and he's a big Bitcoin player. And we got out a whiteboard, and he spent the whole day explaining it like from the code on upwards. And by the end of the day, I was like, this is amazing. I was writing a book called Choose Yourself, and I was like, this is a choose yourself currency. This empowers the money holder to really be like when you have crypto, it's like you're the bank. You have all the abilities that a bank has, but a bank won't let you have as an individual. But now with crypto and Bitcoin, you can. And so I was very excited. And just a month later, I was on CNBC already talking about Bitcoin. And I built a Bitcoin only store to sell. There was only one product in the store, it was my own book, Choose Yourself. And I sold each a PDF of Choose Yourself for 1/10 of a Bitcoin. Bitcoin was $61 at the time. I sold about 60 of these for 1/10 of a Bitcoin, which was crazy if you think about it. So it's like $6 in 2013's money, but obviously like $10,000 per book now. And and then I was just all in like bullish on Bitcoin. And then and just to extend the story a little bit, around 2017, I decided to start a newsletter about Bitcoin, and I hired analysts, and of course, I charged for it because I was hiring people, and I wanted it to be high quality resource. I felt like a basic problem of Bitcoin was that it was hard to understand, and you can't have this was like the internet in 1992. It was hard to understand. So people were like, "Oh, it's just for academics. It's not for real people." And so I wanted to explain it. I wanted to make it easier for people to understand. And unfortunately, I advertised it. Those advertisements went viral. It's the reason why Facebook banned advertisements about Bitcoin newsletters to this day is because I had hundreds of millions of views on these ads, and I was getting a lot of negative feedback. People were really upset at me for a lot of reasons. Oh, it's this, decentralized thing. We're all about the community. You can't really advertise about Bitcoin. And I was like, one Saturday night, I was getting so upset about people yelling at me on Twitter that I put my phone number on Twitter. And I said, if anyone really has a problem with me, they can call me right now. And it was 2 in the morning on a Saturday night. And a lot of people called me, and I talked for the founder of Dogecoin, Jackson Palmer, called me, and I explained to him what I was doing. I was trying to get the word out about crypto, and sometimes you're competing against other people who are advertising, so you have to advertise too. And my advertisements were very successful. So he actually went on Twitter. He says, "I don't always agree with the ads, but it seems like he's doing the right thing." So I got some credibility there. And the journey just continued. That's just the beginning, and I'm sure it's like your story. Where it's taken lots of ups and downs and twists and turns, but it's been a good journey so far.
And I love capturing people's story before they get into Bitcoin, just because it makes it more relatable. So I'm just curious, what did you believe about money, economics, freedom before you got into Bitcoin or before you had that session with Naval?
I thought for me, money has always been about I don't buy anything. Like I don't have any luxuries or anything like that. But it's for me, it's about freedom, and it is about convenience and not having to, you know, deal with people I don't like. Having being able to make more choices. That's what money really gives you if you have a healthy attitude about it. But every time I made money, the more money I had this weird thing where the more money I had, the poorer I felt. And I don't know why. It's almost like it's almost like I didn't have self-belief. Like if I can make money, then it must not be worth anything. And then I would feel this desperate need to make more, and that would force me to make poor money decisions, like bad investments and so on. And so I really had to deal with that and understand it and respect money. And I don't know, the idea that someone like Satoshi Nakamoto was trying to innovate on money. I mean, think about it. What do you think was what would you say was the last innovation on money before the creation of Bitcoin?
Well, I'm reading a book called the Genesis book, and in there he starts the book off talking about e-gold. So that's just top of mind right now. But yeah, maybe
Well,
e-gold. But then there's been several iterations, I guess, on it since. But that's the one that comes to mind.
but that one, the problem is that one didn't really work in the sense
No.
that it didn't, right. And so the last real change in money was Nixon taking the US dollar off the gold system. So suddenly we had this incredible thing with both good points and bad points, which was fiat money. So a piece of paper that we all pretend has value. So, you know, gold, you can argue whether it's a rock or whether it has value, but it's a scarce resource. It's a mineable resource. It's used for jewelry. It has some industrial uses. And for 6,000 years, people have associated with money. But then Nixon suddenly said, no, 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 no. It's okay. In God we trust. Here's the Secretary of Treasury writes a signature. So this piece of paper has value now. Doesn't need to be backed by anything. We're telling you a story and you better believe it. And that's a scary thing because at some point we could decide not to believe it. But Bitcoin, again, I mentioned earlier, it has 1 million man hours of code in it. It actually, it's Turing complete, meaning Bitcoin can do everything a computer can do. And so it actually does have, trillions of dollars in potential value. It actually really is valuable, and it is a scarce resource in the code. Like even with gold, we don't know how much gold exists. There might be another trillion ounces of gold we haven't found yet. But with Bitcoin, we know exactly how much exists, and we know we know it has as many use cases as there are use cases for the computer. So, so it has incredible value. So it really is, after Nixon's decision in 1971, this was the next big innovation that worked. I mean, you could argue maybe digital payments with PayPal, but that was just kind of extending the fiat currency model into the digital world. Whereas Bitcoin is something new. It's simply not a dollar. It's something completely new that has survived. It's amazing that it survived because the innovation before Nixon's decision was, I don't know what, paper money, which was backed by gold. And before that, of course, was using precious metals as money versus barter. So this is really a big deal.
I totally agree. And just curious, so what about, were you already disillusioned with traditional finance and centralized systems, or was that shift triggered later?
I think that shift was more like an eye-opening. Like if I'm being really honest, I wish I could say someone should do what Satoshi Nakamoto eventually did, but I was too obsessed with making money to really understand what money was, and so it took someone like Naval to really, and suddenly my eyes lit up, and it's like, oh, this is something new that we're talking about. It's not just fake money. It's an innovation in money. If you think about it, every industry evolves. Like when you go to the doctor, if you go to the doctor 100 years ago, they would use this little hammer, hit you on the knee, they would take your temperature, and they tell you to take an aspirin. Now, then they would, you know, do CAT scans and all this technology stuff, and now it's AI. You're gonna go to an AI doctor. You might not need a regular doctor for most things anymore. So medicine evolves. The machines of war have evolved. Uh, you know, Energy, the way the electric grid works has evolved. Cars have evolved. Money, though, hasn't really evolved that much. And it was due for evolution. And big digital, cryptocurrencies are that evolution on money. And it's amazing how it's been working so far.
And then maybe again, prior to Bitcoin, curious, what was your kind of like relationship with tech and innovation? Were you already exploring cryptography and distributed systems, or again, did all that come, well after that Naval conversation?
No, that stuff I knew. So I was a computer science major. I went to grad school at Carnegie Mellon for computer science as well. I was a computer scientist, and my first company was a software company. I I put in my 10,000 hours or more coding, so I really understood all of that stuff. I'd studied everything from coding to the mathematics of cryptography well in advance of crypto, and so I really understood the technology side and why that was important. So I was always a technologist. I worked on AI ever since there was AI practically. I mean, I worked a little bit on Deep Blue, which was the computer that for chess, but beat Garry Kasparov, and so I have a big background in technology.
And did any early moments like the dot-com crash or the maybe the financial crisis in '08 plant seeds of skepticism that Bitcoin later watered, or not really?
Not as much. I wish I could say. I mean, I was a little worried. There was I was reading things like almost every country in the world has at some point seen their currency fail, and I was a little scared. This is part of the reason why I didn't know how much money was enough, because if there's inflation, you could get destroyed even if you work really hard. And I would wonder, like, these people who like were in the Weimar Republic in the 20s, some of them were big, industrialists who had made a lot of money and worked really hard all their lives. And what's it for if the currency gets devalued because someone other than you makes a decision about how much currency should be in the population? But I didn't really think that there could be a solution. I thought the solution was I needed to make as much money as possible. And interestingly, sure, it's better. You're wealthier, you could say, if you have 100 Bitcoin versus 50 Bitcoin, but it's you don't have to be on a constant quest to make more and more money because it's not going to. Bitcoin to date has not inflated versus the product versus the prices of other items in the world. So if you get wealthy once, that's enough. You don't have to get wealthy again and again and again. You don't have to keep racing against the inflation of the dollar. So I was having some concerns, but I did not have any. I was having questions, but I had the wrong answers. The answer for myself personally was, oh, just make 10 times as much money and then you're definitely safe. But what you find when you feel that way, you're never actually safe. But when you realize what Bitcoin and essentially many cryptos are is a battle against this psychological race we have about what's our number. When you were a kid, you ever think, oh, what's my number? The number I need to retire with. So I remember thinking when I was 20 years old, oh, if I had $600,000, that I'm set for life because I'll make 10% a year, no problem, investing. And that's all I need. And then later it was like, oh no, I need at least 2 million. There's inflation. And then when I sold my first company and I made much more than that, I was like, man, there are people out there in this internet boom making $100 million. I need to make at least $100 million. And everyone's going to have $100 million. So what's it? I need to make a billion. Like what's $100 million worth? So I would be in this race against myself, and I'd go broke every time. I would lose that race. And with Bitcoin, there's not the same kind of feeling.
Oh, I love that. That's quite beautiful. I mean, in the sense that, here you were kind of like a hamster on a wheel, right? Where the target was always getting further and further away, and all the while you thought you were the problem, when in reality it could have just been the money,
I mean,
right?
it was probably both. Like it was my sickness that made me think it was me and not the money. But now the thing is, something like Bitcoin. And I would extend this to a few other cryptos. By the way, there's like 2 million cryptos out there, and we all know 99.999% of them are useless for a lot of reasons. You could be and I respect the positions of the a Bitcoin maximalist. You could say, well, Bitcoin, as I mentioned earlier, can do anything a computer can do, so you don't really need anything else. Bitcoin's the first, it's the biggest, it's dominant, and so on. And I agree with that. But I think also there are some things that are easier, even though all the cryptocurrencies essentially can do the same, have the same utility in some sense. You could do some things more easily with Ethereum than you could do with Bitcoin, more things you could do easily with Bitcoin than Ethereum or BitTensor or whatever. And, you know, but the reality is there's very few cryptos that have any value at all. And if you want one with value, the safest choice is Bitcoin. That certainly has value. And so I think it's just that caveat that not all crypto are built the same and most are useless. But I think with Bitcoin, what's exciting is that it's going up from here. People always say to me, well, where is Bitcoin going to end up? And I say it's going to either end up as zero or significantly higher than here. It's not like home yet. It's not home at 100,000 because only like realistically only like 1% of the world use or less uses Bitcoin. And so we've got a long way to go. There's $150 trillion in fiat currency on the planet. There's $1.4 quadrillion in financial assets on the planet, and very little of that is tokenized or Bitcoinized or whatever. So we have a long way to go. The leaders of the world are finally buying into Bitcoin, which means we have a long way to go before the world is satiated on crypto.
Hey, you brought up this idea of tokenization. You probably know, as a shareholder and an advisor to us, that we are launching gold on top of Bitcoin, right, over at Matador.
Yes.
You've also had a profound impact in our thinking in terms of tokenization and whatnot. Do you want to maybe touch on the whole Larry Fink comment and maybe some of your points on that?
Yeah, Larry Fink has come out. I mean, so he's the head of BlackRock. Who knows how much money they have? $12 trillion they manage, something like that. It's the largest financial institution in the world. And Larry Fink has come out and said everything in the world is going to get tokenized. And at first I didn't quite understand. Is that just for the fun of it or what? But like as you start buying crypto, you realize, oh, you mean it's Saturday at 3 in the morning, I could trade Bitcoin on a on a decentralized exchange? And it's the same thing with tokenization. It's right now the only investment asset that most people can buy or sell is stock, like McDonald's stock, from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, except holidays. And then the rest of the time, it's just you can't do it. You can't buy these things that are so important. Like something might happen on the weekend, and you got to wait till the Monday to buy stock and protect your financial health. Like sometimes it's important to protect your financial health at all times. And you know, the amazing thing with tokenization is I'll give a simple example. You know, very simple is stable coins are tokenized dollars, but maybe a little more sophisticated is, tokenized stocks. Kraken just announced and Robinhood's announced that they're tokenizing stocks. They're allowing you to buy stocks 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's going to drastically change everything. First off, it gets rid of the scam of market makers. So the major exchanges have these things called market makers that are somehow intermediaries between you and buying and selling the stock. Well, they get a fee in the middle whenever you buy or sell a stock. And then there are these dark pools inside all the banks, which are a way for their high-end customers to cheat you out of fractions of a penny every time you make a stock transaction, but that adds up. You get cheated all the time by your own bank and in these dark pools. And so the banks and the governments, they have the best of intentions. They want to help you do these, help you with your financial transactions, have a savings account, have a checking account, whatever, but they charge fees for all that. And they take from the poor and give to the wealthy. And that I'm not resenting the wealthy here, but it's just a fact of what the banks do. They service their best customers first. And when you trade on a DeFi exchange, it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, fractions of a penny in fees if you do it right. You become your own bank. You hold your money. You control the yields you make. You control how your money's spent. No one knows who you are, ostensibly, and so I want to trade my I want to trade things other than just stocks. So, for instance, instead of getting a mortgage from the bank, what if I can take 10% of my house and tokenize it? So now James's house coin is traded on an exchange. So if and let's say I'm always transparent. Oh, we just added a bathroom to my house. Now the value of James's house token probably goes up because if I ever sell it, then the 10% I've tokenized, the owners of those coins benefit when I sell my house, or if I rent my house, or if I Airbnb my house. So tokenization could monetize my house in a way that was better for me financially than doing the one thing I can do with a bank, which is a mortgage. I don't know why people haven't done this before. Or let's say this is a more complicated example. Let's say I just graduated law school, hypothetically, and I have $300,000 in student loans, which is about average for a law school graduate. $300,000. How am I going to pay that off? Well, let's say I went to a fairly good law school and I got a job at a good law firm. What if I tokenized 10% of my lawyer income for the next 15 years and and drop that on the market? And if people believe in me and they can buy my token, I can pay off my student loans, and now I can work really hard to make as high income as possible. And the people who bought through a crypto token 10% of my future income, they're going to benefit huge. They could buy low and sell high, particularly if I overexceed in my career. That's a more complicated example. Or I could like, you ever hear of the Bowie bonds? So when David Bowie needed some money, and he made his future royalties on Space Oddity and a few other albums. He made his future royalties bonds, which he issued for $700 million, and he ultimately he paid off based on the royalties of the bonds, he paid it off over time, and it started a huge thing. The Beatles did it, Michael Jackson did it, and a lot of musicians. Justin Bieber just did it, and but how do I buy those? I don't know. I gotta call a bond broker. I don't even know what a bond broker is. I've been a hedge fund manager and I've been in the finance business for 25 years. I don't even know how to buy any of these bonds, these special purpose bonds. So, but if it's tokenized, let's say I'm a musician and anybody, I don't need a special person. Anybody could tokenize their royalty stream from music or books or whatever and put it on a DeFi exchange. And if people believe in it, they'll buy it. So what's going to happen with tokenization is so many more opportunities for everybody to generate wealth and to monetize that wealth and to monetize intellectual property and to monetize royalties and to monetize any sort of income stream or future income streams. All of this is possible. So there's many more opportunities for people to invest, to diversify, to get wealthy, to monetize that wealth in creative ways. This is going to change the world of investing. It's again, $1.4 quadrillion in financial assets, but probably more like $5 quadrillion in potential tokenizable assets. It's going to completely change the financial system. Sorry if that was a really long
Oh,
answer.
no, no, I love your energy and you're just so articulate. Yeah, I was going to ask you one other question as well. Is that just to kind of go back to that conversation you had with Naval, right? Just to maybe double click on that aha moment that you had around Bitcoin. And it's interesting because you're a computer scientist, like you said, you had this strong grasp of kind of the cryptographic element and all of that. But what was it? Do you remember like the two or three kind of bullet points that Naval dropped on you? I mean, what an
Ah,
amazing experience it must have been to get someone like Naval to explain it to you. But what was it that threw you over the edge?
you know, I haven't thought about it since that conversation, but that's interesting because I do remember some of these aha moments. And by the way, speaking as a chess player, one thing I've noticed about myself coming back to chess as an older person, I can see how my brain has changed between my 20s and my 50s, and my memory is far worse. Like, I used to remember everything. I had like almost like practically a photographic memory. So if I looked at a chess game, I would remember it. But now I don't remember anything. Like I still remember those things I learned in my 20s, but if I learn a new opening now, it is so much harder for me to remember it. My memory just biologically, and this happens as you age, has changed. But I do remember these moments from that conversation with Naval. That's how much of an impact it had. But I remember thinking how fascinating smart contracts were, and that, you know, a dumb contract. So first off, is something smart? What is something that's dumb? Well, a dumb contract is the contracts we sign with our lawyer every day. So like, okay, we all sign something, and then somebody breaks the deal, and now you have to go to court and sue and whatever, or you contest it in court. You know, and you see this all the time. Like families are ruined when someone dies because of wills are mostly dumb contracts, and but a smart contract, everything gets sort of locked up in the blockchain. And like, let's take the case of a will. You present the death certificate basically to the blockchain, and uh, and then the money is released in the to everybody, and it's just done in code. And that's a smart contract. You don't have to trust anybody. It's called trustless, and trustless almost sounds like a bad word. Like I don't trust that person. But no, now you don't have to trust anybody. It's all in the code. So that's what a smart contract is. And so that kind of blew my mind that this was not only affecting, I was like, huh, this not only affects the financial system, it affects the legal system. So there's this intricate relationship between the legal system and the financial system because what are most lawyers for? They're there for financial transactions. So lawyers become this entire industry. This basically you could think of it as this entire layer of fees that sits on top of the financial system. Like you have to in order to die and leave my money to the people I want to, I'm just going with the will example, I have to pay an extra set of fees, i.e., pay a lawyer. Whereas with smart contracts, I just type up who this goes to here, this goes to here, this goes to here, and it's done. Like I don't need an extra notary, I don't need lawyers. I mean, I can have someone double stamp it, but whatever. But smart contracts were fascinating to me, and the privacy aspect was fascinating to me. That oh, because okay, technically your financial stuff is private, except your bank knows everything you do, the government knows everything you do, Visa knows everything you do, and everybody you buy from, whether it's Amazon, Time Warner, they all know everything about you, which is why, like you and I could talk about chess right now, and then I'll turn on the TV or I'll turn on YouTube and I'll start seeing ads for chess. Somehow, like Google is like listening to us, and it's going to be the first thing I see an ad for chessboards on Amazon. And so there's not really privacy. And normally I'm okay with it. It's not like I'm a secret agent and need to be private. But at some point you start to wonder, like, gosh, what do I have to be careful about? Whereas, okay, Bitcoin doesn't always solve every privacy issue, but Bitcoin combined with, some extra privacy layers, does solve privacy completely. There is no issue at all. And that was an amazing thing as well.
And what mental models did you have to let go of to get Bitcoin?
That that borders are important. So, what's the main use case of the dollar? What is your largest purchase per year if you own fiat currency? Your largest purchase of the year is safety from your government's police and tax service. So I have to pay taxes every year in order to keep the government away from me. So that's my biggest purchase for per year is peace of mind for another year. And by the way, it's a worthwhile purchase. It's worth it having that peace of mind. And your government does things. You might not always agree with everything your government does, but that is, unfortunately, for better or for worse, that is the main use case around the world for fiat currency is to pay taxes. That's why we have to collect fiat money is ultimately is because we have to pay our taxes in it. We can't pay our taxes yet in Bitcoin. And so the mental model I had to get rid of is that there's more interesting use cases for money if you get rid of that use case, or if you at least if you don't think of that as a, I'm not saying you shouldn't pay your taxes. I'm saying that that's the reason I thought fiat money was important, but actually money is important for other things as well. And money doesn't have to have the borders of a country. Like US dollars are in the US because we pay taxes to the IRS. Canadian dollars are in Canada because you have to pay your revenue service and on and on. But with Bitcoin, there's no tax service. So can money really exist outside of a system of taxation? And it turns out that money can exist in a meritocracy where a use case is based on your merits rather than an external tax service. So, for instance, Bitcoin is useful as a store of value, not just as a method to pay taxes. You might say Ethereum is useful as a decentralized programming language, not just to pay taxes. Um, I'll say Tau slash BitTensor is useful as a way to incentivize AI developers. It's a very useful example of crypto technology. Hyperliquid is useful as a way to program very sophisticated decentralized exchanges, not just as a way to pay your local tax service. So cryptocurrencies have use case borders and not geographic borders. And that was a very interesting thing to me as well, even in the conversation, my first conversation about Bitcoin.
And how did your worldview shift after adopting Bitcoin? Did it change how you approach writing, investing, and even your relationships?
That's a good question. I think it did only because a lot of people didn't want to understand what crypto is or believe what crypto is. And so I actually like lost friends because of things I was writing about crypto. So people would like just stop, like a lot of, there's one friend of mine, a very famous guy in the personal finance space, well known. If I said his name, everybody would know who his name is. Um, I don't like to say bad things about people though, so I won't say his name. But he just stopped. He was a good friend of mine. He just stopped talking to me when I was writing about crypto. We didn't even have a conversation about crypto. He just saw that I was writing about it, and then boom, that was it.
And what's the one thing that people still don't understand, about Bitcoin that drives you crazy?
I think I think we're still I think we're still at that point where a lot of people still wonder if it's a fad or not. They say someone said to me the other day, look, gold's been around 6,000 years, Bitcoin's been around 15 years. So is it a fad? We don't know yet. I think we know, like you and I know it's not a fad, but a lot of people don't. And I don't it doesn't annoy me as much as want me to help solve this problem. The thing that real that the thing about crypto is it's hard to explain. It actually is it's still hard to explain what a blockchain is and what is a cryptocurrency? What's a smart contract? These are not easy concepts. I mean, they're easy once the light bulb goes off in your head, but until that point, you're trying, you have to, it's like a puzzle. You're trying to get your head around it. And for some other crypto tokens, it's even harder. By the way, stable coins, which should be stable coins, honestly, is probably the simplest business model on the planet. You sell a dollar and you put the dollar you sell a crypto dollar and you for a dollar and you put that into treasury bills and you make the spread. It's the best business model on the planet, probably. It's a very Warren Buffett style business. And yet Warren Buffett himself doesn't understand it. Like he's admitted this. So, and I say it's a Warren Buffett style business because it's similar to an insurance company. Somebody gives you a dollar, you hold on to it and invest it, and you take the spread until they need their money back or want their money back because they got sick or whatever. So it's almost the same. A stablecoin business model is almost as similar to an insurance company model. You keep 100% of the profits, and you don't have to do that much work for it. And so it's very annoying that it's crypto is still hard to understand, and because of the way it developed kind of out of the technology sector with people who are very purists. It's not like Bitcoin has a marketing arm. You know, some cryptos do though. Like Solana, I think part of the success of Solana, and Solana by far is not my favorite crypto. I think for instance the Ethereum ecosystem is much more valuable than the Solana ecosystem. But Solana hired Netflix as head of marketing to do marketing for it. And they instantly I forget her name, but she started sponsoring Solana hackathons and this and that and all sorts of events, and that's part of Solana's popularity today. And so that as even though as I could be a cynic about that, it worked for them to help explain Solana a little better. And I wished maybe the rest of the crypto world did that a little bit more. Although I'm a purist enough that I don't something rubs me the wrong way, but I do appreciate what they did.
And so what's your mission right now in the Bitcoin space?
I think there's well, two things. One is I still think explaining it is really important. Like I have a newsletter with about 200,000 subscribers where I write about I just a half hour ago I got off my um I have a weekly subscriber call with some higher end subscribers, about 2,000. But once a month I write, or every day I could also write to my main list, which has about 200,000 subscribers who are interested in crypto and stocks and so on. And so my mission still is to explain it and try to help people understand it. And my knowledge is always increasing about what I understand about it. Like there are some of these tokens you could take really deep dives and get into a rabbit hole, and it's almost never ending because it's sort of like AI too, in the sense that we don't yet fully understand what we could do with AI. It's the same thing with crypto. We're just beginning to understand tokenization. I mean, with a quadrillion dollars of financial assets, maybe $10 billion worth, not counting stable coins, maybe only $10 billion worth is tokenized, maybe a little more. So that's very small, and it's only getting bigger, but it's going to make our creativity go crazy with all the possibilities. So it's very exciting. I'm always very excited about every time I get a chance to read or more about crypto or but you can't write a book about crypto, by the way, because the book's outdated the second it comes out. There's news every day. And then what's exciting me now is there's this merger of the crypto and equity markets now, because for the first time, companies that are public can have cryptocurrencies on their balance sheets. So that means the CEO of a public company is also like an asset manager, because you have to now, you can have more than just dollars on your balance sheet. You can actively trade crypto. So then you have to think like a fiduciary hedge fund manager, like, oh, what crypto should I hold? Should I hold this obscure little meme coin because I think it's going to go up a lot? No, that will get me into legal trouble probably with my shareholders and my board and my employees and whoever. So I have to be responsible as the way an asset manager would be. Pretty soon I might be in trouble if I just have dollars and not diversify into crypto. So I've been advising quite a few companies on crypto and how they can kind of go into sort of this asset management strategy with cryptos. And I even started one myself. The symbol's TAOX, TAOX, and we buy Tao, which is the leading crypto for decentralized AI. And so the theory is, if AI is going to be a $3 trillion industry in a few years, which it will be, growing from 300 billion today, some percentage of that is going to go into decentralized AI, and Tao is the leading crypto for that. But you could go into a deep dive on Tao and it'll never end. Like it is, there's so much there. Just like Bitcoin, there's so much there, and it's never ending. So just all these things excite me kind of in tandem.
And are you more excited about Bitcoin or let's say crypto, the asset class or the movement or more the protocol, all the above?
I'm excited about the use cases.
Hmm.
Like you remember when you first heard about, or maybe you haven't heard about, but I remember when I first heard about SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. So the idea is of this organization called the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. They would take a photo of the sky every day, and they would divide it up into a million pieces and send it out to a million computers. Anybody who had volunteered the spare computer cycles on their computers at night while they were sleeping, and it would crunch on your computer would crunch the data on this tiny little piece of the picture of the universe that you got, and see if any radio signals, were there, and that would identify aliens existed. And so now you have, so this was like this amazing thing, this decentralized computing, and now you have DPIN tokens, decentralized physical infrastructure tokens. There's Tau, Render, Akash, Filecoin, ICP, and some are good, some are bad. And uh, just the idea now that this exists and this is a sector of crypto, and it's easy to create these decentralized, you know, at the time, SETI was the only thing happening. Now there's like a million, like you could render videos across, Render, the token, renders 3D videos for Disney across thousands of computers. And on and on. There's all these amazing use cases. And by the way, is Render a coin? Can I buy a cup of coffee with Render? I don't know, but it has this amazing use case that has nothing to do with the currency. And this is the interesting thing about Bitcoin. I would be a maximalist for Bitcoin as a currency, but it doesn't necessarily own the concept of decentralization at this point. Like I'd rather use Render to render a 3D video than Bitcoin. You could do it with Bitcoin, you could program it, but it's already done with Render. I'd rather, you know, use Filecoin for storage than Bitcoin. Although there, I think Bitcoin's a little easier for it to do. But my point is that it's not just a currency. It's decentralized physical infrastructure. It's tokenization. It's uh, the legal field. It's decentralized science, and on and on and on. It's programming. Distributed programming. So the use cases. I think of crypto. I hardly think of crypto as a currency anymore. I think of it as there's sectors to crypto, just like there are sectors, just like McDonald's is in the food sector and Exxon is in the oil sector. There's also sectors to crypto.
You touched on this kind of new phenomenon where crypto is starting to interface with capital markets. You touched on how crypto is now starting to interact with AI in a very unique way. What would you say is kind of the most underrated opportunity in the Bitcoin crypto space today? Is it Tau X, or are you looking at some other things as well?
Yeah, I would say Tau X is amazing because, or Tau the crypto, not Tau X the stock, but Tau the crypto is amazing because it's the tokenomics are exactly like Bitcoin's. There's 21 million lifetime tokens. There's about 8.5 million issued right now, or 8.9 million issued, and it's mined, every few minutes. And uh, but the incentives, you incentivize people to contribute to the development of better AI models. So it's a different incentive. So Bitcoin's incentive is to incentivize people to essentially validate transactions because there's no bank in the middle. So you need to have an incentive mechanism to get volunteers to use their computers and electricity to validate transactions. So that's a great use case, a great incentive mechanism. Tau borrowed the incentive mechanism, but instead of using all its electricity and validating transactions, it validates AI models or GPU quality or whatever. So I love the incentive mechanism that Bitcoin invented, that Satoshi Nakamoto invented, is being used for AI by Tau X, which is a really by Tau, which is a really fascinating thing. But also, I think you know tokenization is an enormous use case. I mean, the creativity, people are going to realize, oh, you mean, bankers typically say have 60% stocks, 40% bonds. That's that's going away. That's an antique. There are going to be so many financial assets and that are completely diversified from each other. So we all don't collapse during a recession. It's going to change the whole financial system and make it a lot better. If you can tokenize basically every possible royalty and income stream, what if like take intellectual property? We know that AI models use all this intellectual property, but they don't really track it. Well, what if you can tokenize and even make a trading exchange on IP? You can do that now with crypto. I mean, I don't think anybody's done it yet, but that is a doable thing. And or tokenizing real estate. BlackRock is tokenizing real estate. More and more things are going to be tokenized and traded actively. Like like this next generation's kids are going to have so many opportunities to trade different financial assets than we could have ever even imagined. That's going to be so creative. It's going to be amazing.
And maybe as we kind of get to the end of this interview here, what advice would you give to people who are, Bitcoin curious, but maybe aren't quite committed just yet?
I would say don't be open-minded. Don't have an opinion. Even me, okay, I don't have an opinion. I just want to learn. Like, be willing to just do that deep dive. Do it on Bitcoin first. Just read about it, study it, be open to it. And then what's the difference between Bitcoin and Ethereum? Ask the question. And heck, use Grok. Just ask. Just the great thing about Grok is you don't have to worry about sounding stupid. Like everyone who asks me about Bitcoin, they always start off. 100% of the people start off. I'm going to ask you a stupid question, but there's no stupid questions. What I love about AI is you could be as stupid as possible. I could go in there and say, "Can you tell me blockchain again? I just need to explain it in layman's terms," and and I don't need to feel stupid with the AI. It's not going to judge me. So just ask every question you possibly could have. Like, you know, ask it if gold has value. Why do people think Bitcoin has value? Like, it's not gold. Just ask your favorite AI. It might not give you the answer you want, but just keep asking it then, and just be willing to take that deep dive and be open-minded. Be skeptical to the AI. Like, ask as many questions as possible, but just be open-minded and go take a deep dive and you know like I mentioned render earlier. Oh, how does it render 3D videos using crypto technology? Why can't I just do that in a centralized way? What's the purpose of decentralized? What if a company just did that? Couldn't I just use that company? Why did they have to make it into a crypto just ask the dumbest questions possible and just keep going. That's the advice I would give. I'm not saying go out there and buy something. Sure, it's an investable asset class, just like McDonald's is. but you eat a quarter pounder and like it before you decide to buy McDonald's stock. So just really dive in and become, you know, obsessed a little bit. The only way to really, and you know, this is a chess player, the only way to really get better at something is to be just even a little bit obsessed. Obsession fuels knowledge and getting better at something.
Love it, James. This has been such a fun one. So just maybe help us land the plane here. So fast forward, let's say 10 years. What role do you want James Altucher to have played in the Bitcoin story?
Well, you know, because for instance, like Tau X is a proxy for Tau, and then I have to ask myself, well, am I making something? Am I doing something of value by buying? You know, the only goal of Tau X is to buy and stake as aggressively as possible, or not as aggressively as possible, but to stake responsibly. Tau, you get like 20% staking yields roughly right now. And so what am I doing? Like, am I building something? And the answer is, and this is what's very different from buying stocks when you buy crypto. When you buy crypto, you are doing something. Every crypto does something. Every token does something. It's not like when I own McDonald's stock, it's just a certificate I can hang on the wall or whatever. But when I buy Tau, BitTensor, I am basically incentivizing, and then when I stake it, I'm basically incentivizing the next generation of AI. I am essentially paying incentives for people to contribute AI models into this Tau community. When I buy Bitcoin, I'm essentially, if I buy Bitcoin and hold it, I'm reducing the supply of Bitcoin. So that indirectly incentivizes people to validate transactions on this growing, you know, transaction network. And that's a very valuable operational thing to do. So I want to play my role in in for instance making AI better and more valuable. And I do that by using this stock or using this public company to buy as much Tau as I can. And I'll be doing other types of stock for other proxies because I think there's a valuable role to play for people who are buying these tokens. They're reducing supply, and that creates more incentives for people to use, you know, whatever it is those tokens do. You know, someone once told me, a governor of a state once told me, this government is very simple. Incentivize behaviors you want, disincentivize behaviors you don't want. So what does that mean? Well, pay higher, you know, put a higher tax on cigarette smoking because that's behavior you don't want in society. Uh, you know, reduce incentives for farmers because you want people to grow more food. So that's behavior you do want. And the crypto world's the same way. It's built on incentive mechanisms. So you want to incentivize people to use Bitcoin because it's a better currency than a fiat dollar, which I believe it is, then you should buy more Bitcoin. If you want to incentivize more AI or better AI, you buy Tau. If you want to incentivize more decentralized apps being built, you buy something like Ethereum or Solana or whatever, and on and on.
Cool, James. Maybe if you don't mind, just share your Twitter handle, your website, so that people can get connected to you.
Yeah, I'm at J Altucher, Altucher, at J Altucher, and you can check out my podcast, The James Altucher Show, which a young man named Sonny Ray has been a guest on. So check out that episode, a very valuable episode where we talked about digital gold and other things. And look, you're running a you know, treasury company, you know, Bitcoin merged with gold. I always tell people you might, if you want to be the best in the world at something, combine two things you're pretty good at. So if you're pretty good at Bitcoin and you're pretty good at gold, now if you do Bitcoin or Bitcoin gold, you're going to be the best in the world at that. So, you know, that works with crypto as well. Like, oh, I understand the storage space and I understand the crypto space, so let's make Filecoin. We'll be the best crypto for digital storage. I don't think Filecoin is the best for that, but I was an investor in that, so I always use that as an example. Uh, so anyway, that's what we talked about a little bit on your podcast with me.
Awesome. Well, James, thank you for supporting us. Thank you for supporting the community and for all the great work that you do in educating people. So Yeah, this has been a lot of fun for
Th
me.
Thanks, Sonny. You asked great questions. You made me really think about my own motivations in this, and I've never really thought about that. So thank you.
Well, thank you. All right, well, I'll catch you on the next one. Thank you,
Yes.
everyone, for listening.